A man armed with a pipe who pointed it at police in Brooklyn shot and killed by the NYPD. Neighbors, family, and friends upset and angry, saying he was mentally ill and everybody knew it. Nate Rogers has the full story. Nate, what do you got?
Bill, behind me right now, you see a couple of hundred of folk that live and work in this community that are absolutely furious about yet another black man killed by police. And this is why. Take a look at this video from Tuesday showing 34-year-old Saheed Vassell sweeping up hair at a nearby barbershop. Vassell, who was known to be mentally challenged, worked odds and ends jobs like this throughout the neighborhood every day just to earn a few dollars. Every person I spoke to called him harmless.
He goes to the store for these guys all the time. He gets their lunch, their dinner while they cut hair. He runs errands around here. The whole entire neighborhood knows him. So there's no excuse to say, well, we didn't know.
Well, he would talk to himself a lot outside, you know, and sometimes he would act like if he fretting but trouble nobody, just by himself.
Now here are the facts. Vassell was shot and killed by 5 NYPD officers early yesterday evening here in Brooklyn's Crown Heights neighborhood. Here's surveillance video from nearby businesses. Police say they arrived after several 911 calls of Vassell pointing a silver firearm at people. Police say Vassell eventually confronted officers in a two-handed standing form position, aiming the object at officers. According to police, that object turned out to be a metal pipe with a knob on it. However, the Brooklyn father was shot 10 times by police, later dying at the hospital.
So to just shoot a man down 10 times, that's the key thing, you know. You didn't shoot him once, you didn't shoot him twice, 10 times. Just an adding up, to me.
Now, Bill, here's what's troubling about this case. Business owners say even the cops who patrol this area knew Vassell well. So a couple of questions now. What de-escalation tactics were used prior to this situation? Also, was it worth him being shot 10 times?
Why not take an alternative as opposed to, like, say, for example, tasing?
Vassell's death is yet another controversial strike against NYPD officers on how they confront deranged suspects. The department has tried to institute community policing and other training tactics, but the outcome remains the same: a mentally ill patient killed by police and a community outraged. Now, also interesting here, Saheed was killed yesterday on the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. The Attorney General's office is now investigating this situation. In Brooklyn, I'm Nate Rogers for Chasing News.
Thank you, Nate. All right, let's bring in an expert, former NYPD retired Detective Sergeant Joe Giacalone. Joe, welcome back to Chasing News. How are you?
Good, Bill. How are you?
So let me ask you, you see this, what do you say to the family that very, very upset, saying that the cops, the neighbors, everyone knew this guy was bipolar, had issues, but he was harmless?
Yeah, I can sympathize with the family that they're upset over this. However, from a police point of view, I mean, not everybody who is going to arrive on the scene is going to have any knowledge of this guy, what his background is. I mean, nobody comes attached with a note on them saying that I have, I'm bipolar and I have some issues. So, unfortunately, this situation, we have 911 callers that saying he has a gun. We show video footage of him, pointing the gun at people, and then when the cops arrive, he did it to them.
You feel that the cops followed procedure?
As well as to be expected, as well as to be expected from what we see here. They came prepared for it. The 911 callers, said he has a gun. They came prepared, and you know what? When you make a movement like that towards the cops,
Joe, how realistic is the criticism that they say, well, why don't you use non-lethal forms of detaining someone, putting them down, a taser, something like that?
Well, it's like the old saying, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. I mean, from all the 911 calls saying that this guy had a gun. So you're not going to come out with a taser because you're going to lose that battle if he's got a gun. So it's as simple as that. I mean, he's not unarmed, so this is the thing where, you kind of scratch your head.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Take care, guys.
Perspective. All right, let's bring in the A-plus panel for tonight's show. We're joined by Democratic strategist Bill Caruso. Welcome back, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Good to see you. Republican strategist Jeanette Hoffman is back with us. Always good to see you, Jeanette.
Thanks, Bill.
And former prosecutor and now defense attorney Bob Bianchi.
Right. I was in charge of all police shootings when I was the prosecutor. This is clearly a legitimate use of force by the officers. And should have it actually been a gun and an officer was killed or a pedestrian was killed in the course of this, they'd be arguing the cops didn't respond properly. But let me say this about the media. please, the media needs to not use this case as the poster case for bad police shootings. There have been a number, and you've heard me talk about this, Bill, highly questionable police shootings that are very concerning to me. This is not one of them.
Yeah. Jeanette, are we too soft on the issue of mental illness?
Right, and you bring up a good point, and Joe Jacqueline talked about how the neighbors and the police nearby knew he had mental problems and mental health problems. Clearly, he wasn't getting the treatment that he needed, and this was the unfortunate circumstance that arose from that.
Bill, as a Democratic strategist, do you expect Democratic politicians to jump all over this and talk about police brutality? And why aren't there more Democrats coming out saying, hey, the cops are right here?
Well, I think you have had Democrats come out, and Jeanette just mentioned the mental health crisis, and I think you've had Democrats that talk about that. I agree with Bob here. I don't think this is a poster child for police shootings gone wrong. God knows there are those out there. This is a horrible situation.
Not many, but that's for another debate.
There are, but this is a horrible situation. I don't envy being the parents. I don't envy being the family. I don't envy being the cop right now either.
Right.
This is a horrible situation, but it's about the mental health crisis. That's what this is.
This is not about racial tensions in the city.
And people with mental health issues can kill people too.